Just letting people join if they'd like. I may or may not have anyone in this session. Okay, I'll go ahead and start. People can find it later. So there's always some question when you get done with something like this. What do you do? What do you do now? Now that retreat is done and you have to, quote unquote, get back to real life, what do you do? So I'd like to talk very, very briefly about what to do after retreat. And hopefully the screen does not go black here. Wait 1 second. If anyone who's in the chat could let me know if the screen is black or is alive, then I can carry on. All good. Wonderful. Thank you. So this is Mingyur Rinpoche. Mingyur Rinpoche, as it says here, spent more than 4 years doing solitary, well, not solitary, but what's called wandering retreat. That's where he left his home and just wandered around basically as a beggar, and did all of his practice like that. I think he did two different sessions, if I'm not mistaken, of 2 years of retreat like this. And so Lion's Roar, which is a Buddhist publication, interviewed him and asked, what do you do? What do you do when retreat finished? So his advice is first, sit down and do some formal practice every day, So if you don't already have a daily practice, then after doing a retreat like this, the inclination will be, remember the analogy that I used at some point in the early part of the training, where I said, it's a bit like the tide coming in. So maybe when we started a retreat, the boat of your practice was resting down here. And the tide came in and lifted the boat of your practice up here because of retreat. Okay? And now it seems like you have all of these capabilities you didn't have. Your mind has these extraordinary ability, maybe in some cases, you have the ability to open some of the sense gates. Maybe you had some really wonderful tastes of what consciousness is like without concepts in it, and so on and so forth. Maybe you stuck in for the 3-hour session last night, the marathon session, and you actually got a single moment or two of constructed bodhicitta, which is perhaps the most difficult mind in the universe to generate, literally, according to the great masters. The most difficult mind, even more difficult than understanding selflessness and emptiness. So maybe you did all this. So the boat now is resting way up here on all the sort of the water of your practice. The tide of your practice has brought the boat of what you can do up here. As you get back to real life, and you get angry at the guy across the street or the person at work or blah blah blah, and as you start to cling on to all the stuff that you clung on to before retreat, because none of those habits have been done away with, by the way. all of those habits are still there. uh, you're going to end up falling back into all the old stuff. And don't let this get you down, because the training, the path is a long thing. It's a long path. But the water of your practice, the tide of your practice will start to recede. And if you started here, within 6 months, a year, 2 years, depending on how profound this experience was for you, the boat may be resting here now, right? So all this work you put in, first of all, you have probably a pretty slow ride back down, and then the boat will rest a little higher than it was before. And to get the maximum benefit from what's happened, if you try to maintain this level of practice way up here, probably you'll burn yourself out, and at some point you'll just stop entirely because it's too much work, and some of the benefit will go away because your body and your mind need time to integrate what's happened on these 5 days, especially if they've been quite profound. And so what you need to do is bring your practice back down to probably around the level that it's going to rest once it's settled, and let some of these experiences be digested, and give your mind and your body both time to integrate what's happened. So another analogy that can be quite helpful, it's like you've just eaten a big meal. You've just eaten a huge meal. It was like 9 courses with coffee pairing and nuts at the end, and everything perfectly intricately. Hopefully I'm not talking myself up too much, but you're absolutely stuffed. And if you leave retreat and you go, oh, I'll just keep eating, pretty soon you're going to be in the hospital. So Mingyur Rinpoche recommends, just if you don't already have one, start a formal seated daily practice. Okay, so how much practice should you do? He says, and I agree, it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be hours of seated practice. Perhaps a half an hour, depending on your time and willingness. Maybe sometimes you do an hour. Sometimes you do 45 minutes. When, just like at the end of each day, by the 3rd day, 4th day, 5th day, we were just naturally, all of us, including myself, able to sit for 45 minutes or 90 minutes or 3 hours, right? Maybe it was a bit of work, but it felt pretty natural, at least to me, to be able to do that amount of extra practice. So there will be a relatively organic amount of work, let's say, that it feels sort of like it did doing a regular session during retreat, like doing one session, where it feels like, okay, this is totally manageable. And the next time you sit down, you want to sit down. If you sit down for 2 hours and you're totally fried by the end, and then tomorrow you have cold sweats thinking about sitting down again, that's not sustainable. So you want to choose an amount of time each day to sit down, and then don't do 100%. Certainly don't do 150%. Do 70 or 80%. So that just like the short intensive sessions during retreat, you have the energy to do the next session. You want to come back and do the next session. So if that's 5 minutes, do 5 minutes. If it's 10 minutes, do 10 minutes. If it's 20, do 20. If it's an hour, do an hour. But only do so much so that the next time you come back to do the practice, there's a natural desire when you get done with the session, I want to do this again, right? And that only happens if you can most of the time, not all the time, of course, but only happens if most of the time you can strike that balance of like 60, 70, 80% of your energy was devoted to the session. If it's 100% full on all the time, then there's the chance that you're going to burn yourself out, and there's certainly the chance that you won't want to come back and sit down again. So Mingyur Rinpoche says, consider meditating more than what you already do, but don't promise too much, right? So if your new expectation is, well, the boat of my practice in retreat was way up here. I can do 3 hours now, right? If this is what you think, and then someone in the chat said I'm burned out already. So if your new expectation is I can do 3 hours, or your new expectation is I can do 90 minutes, or your new expectation is I can do 45 minutes and I'm fine, but in reality, the tide is going to recede and you're going to be back down to maybe you used to be able to do 20 minutes and now you can do 30 or 25 pretty comfortably, then do that. Okay? So Minga Rinpoche says it's important to build up the habit because whether it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes, even if people love meditation, when it comes to regular practice, right? Regular practice integrated into your life, many people don't do practice at all. Now remember that quote from the Shobogenzo, where I think it was Yakusan, Dogen was quoting Yakusan, if I'm not mistaken, Master Yakusan, and he said, so many people think that the practice is just sitting, and he said people in all these modern Chinese people, and he's talking about people from the 12th century doing Chan practice. He said sitting is the only thing, right? No matter what your age or level of experience, just do your sitting. And Dogen said no, and Yakusan said no. What the great master said is, bring your practice into your other activities like standing, talking, walking. So the skills you gained on retreat, one of my teachers says, you can now bring into micro sessions. So one thing that you can take out of retreat, and I think you should take out of retreat, is micro sessions. So micro sessions means you're waiting in line at the store, and while you're waiting, or at the grocery, or whatever they call it, where you live, right? You're waiting in line, and you have to stand still for a moment. And so you do front, back, left, right, up, down, open. And then the body's open, and you put a little bit of attention and vision, and you don't look like a zombie, and you don't make it anything obvious what you're doing, and you just rest with full body awareness. And maybe you open the visual and you rest with visual awareness. There's a really funny scene from when I was much younger. I watched Twilight, and there's a really funny scene where Bella is made into a vampire, and she goes to the house for the first time, and the other vampires are there, and one of them says, Bella, now that you're immortal, you won't need to blink anymore, but you need to remember to blink, or the mortals will think you're really strange. And I just burst out laughing. Everyone else was totally silent, but I burst out laughing because I went, oh, this is like Mahamudra, If you learn how to open the sense gates and you're in deep concentration doing normal things, you stop blinking. And then other people are like, what's wrong with this person? So when you're out in public doing these practices, you have to consciously blink so that other people don't think you're some kind of weirdo. So one of my teachers said, look, and this is important in Taoist practice as well, you hide the jade, you hide the jewel of your practice. So when you go out in public and you're doing your practices in micro sessions, when you're walking from your work to your car, or your car to your work, or when you're standing in line for something, or whatever the case may be, in those conditions, you hide the jewel of your practice. You don't make it obvious what you're doing. You don't make a big deal out of it. You don't let other people know. And by the way, what you're accessing is the ordinary mind. This is how they talk about it in Zen. You're accessing the ordinary condition. All this crap that we normally have in the surface of our mind is totally dysfunctional and abnormal. So when you do this, like if I do it right now with my, let's say, body consciousness and my visual consciousness while I'm talking, it doesn't look to you like anything has changed, right? Even though now I'm consciously opening visual and tactile sense gates. And that's because these are the ordinary minds. This is what these minds are supposed to do, right? And so the jade of your practice, the jewel of your practice should be hidden when you're out in public and you're out in the world. You don't need to tell other people, you don't need to look abnormal or weird doing these things, okay? And that helps deal with the quote unquote embarrassment factor that stops you from doing practice, so that you learn how to not look and move unnaturally in weird ways while doing all these micro session practices during your ordinary life. So that's your micro sessions and the integration of these things into your normal life. And then your seated session. When it comes to regular practice, it is important to do your sitting, because as some of you have already experienced, for example, when you meditate on consciousness alone, the 5 external sense gates can begin to close. And that's not something that you want to do while you're driving your car. You can't intensively hold your mind on the consciousness gate only, for example, and drive your car. There's a huge risk you're going to crash your car. Or if you're operating heavy machinery, one person that trained with me for a while worked in a factory. And I said, while you're working in the factory, don't start trying to open your body awareness and do all these internal things. I said, you'll cut your hand off, because that takes up a lot of your mental focus and mental energy to do these practices. So when you're doing something that's complicated, difficult, dangerous, crossing the street, whatever, don't try to do all these internal things. Just focus on the task in a totally natural, I'm focusing on the task kind of way, okay? Like focus on your driving in a relatively normal way. Focus on operating heavy machinery in a relatively normal way. And you'll find that because you're doing all this practice at other times, that your ability to focus and do that task improves, and you're better at those things anyway. And those naturally become more like your practice, but don't try to deliberately do all this other stuff like opening the gates, etc., while doing dangerous things, because you might get injured. And I don't want that on my conscience. I'd rather have you all in one piece, you know? I like you with your arms and legs and hands and fingers and so forth where they are. And so do you. Okay? So returning back to regular practice, again, it's important. It's important to get your regular seated practice established and going, because that's when you can, at least once a day, for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you can get the deepest experiences, sort of like you did during retreat, right? So it's your little miniature retreat every day. You're creating boundaries, special boundaries, where you don't move your body and you don't talk and you don't do such and such and such, and instead you just do intensive practice. And then you take the results of that and you try to expand on it, improve upon it, carry it on in little micro sessions throughout the day. And this is how you carry on with your daily practice. As Mingyur Rinpoche says, just to reinforce this point, and for those who are following along with where all these traditions are coming in, Mingyur Rinpoche comes from a very small family lineage that blends Kagyu tradition of Tibetan Buddhism and Nyingma tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. And once again, just like Dogen, who founded Soto Zen, just like my teacher, who was a great Zen practitioner of sort of Okinawan martial Zen, and of course Tibetan Buddhism, and just like Gelug Mahamudra, the way it was taught to me, says you can do informal meditation. Just like my Taoist teacher said, you can do micro sessions of practice anytime, anywhere. Doesn't matter what you're doing, including walking, eating, having a meeting, watching television, checking Facebook. So even during your quote unquote sort of relaxation activities, you can increasingly bring the types of meditative awareness that we've generated in retreat, and hopefully that you'll be able to generate to some degree in your daily practice, to all of these things. All of these things. Of course, if there are certain types of things you do, certain unmentionables that you do, let's say, that really, really, really disturb your mind, now that we've gotten out of retreat, it's going to become very obvious that those disturb your mind. And you may not be able to cut all those things off immediately because these are habits you've had your whole life, maybe, or for your whole adult life, or for many, many years. And they may be gone for a while, but as the tide of your practice begins to recede again, some of these habits will come back up and just sort of go, okay, this is where I am. This is the level of capability I have. No problem. Do your daily practice, do some micro sessions. We'll do another retreat in 6 months or a year, and the tide will rise a little more. Don't get so weird with yourself that you like, oh, now I never watch TV. Right? If you get too weird and too tight, then you'll quit. You'll burn out. So it is okay to, as it feels natural and organic, to go back to doing, even seemingly sort of like really meaningless kinds of entertainment. That's perfectly fine. Even according to this gentleman, who is not only recognized as a great master, Mingyur Rinpoche, is not only recognized as a great master by the Tibetans, but has also had brain scans done showing that when he generates compassion, for example, the mental activity that he has associated with empathy is greater than the level of compassion and love that a mother feels for her child in the most intense circumstances. Let me say that again. Mingyur Rinpoche, the empathy center of his brain, when they do brain scans of Mingyur Rinpoche, as soon as he thinks about compassion for other beings, that part of his brain lights up so intensely that it is literally off the bell curve for normal human brain activity. It's a completely different bell curve. It's greater than any love that any mother has felt for any child. It's just a different category, according to neuroscientists. Okay, so, and on top of that, when he engages in concentration, his brain activity radically shifts immediately as soon as he enters concentration, and indicates that he is in an extremely deep state of concentration. So Mingyur Rinpoche has a recognized extremely high capability in compassion and concentration. And he's saying it's okay to watch some TV and use your Facebook. Just try to bring awareness to it when you're doing it. So that's worth noting. What else? Yeah. So, yeah, someone said after the story of Atisha, they don't think they're going to eat fish anytime soon. Oh, on the issue of meat and fish and so forth, as strange as it sounds, there is actually some advice in some of the highest practices of Tantra, for example, and some of the similar practices from Taoism, for example, depending on what the practice is, that eating meat can actually be helpful for the practice. So it's not actually that, for example, vegetarianism is absolutely required to make progress or is a natural outcome of compassion all the time. So, again, don't get too weird with your diet. Don't get too weird with anything. Just go back to relative normality, and the habits that have fallen away, let them fall away. If some of them come back, okay, they came back. And do a little bit of seated practice every day, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever feels like 70, 80%, so that you want to come back to it. And then do your micro sessions. Do your little micro sessions of opening the gates, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So for anyone who's interested, I'm now going to do sort of a mock daily session. So we'll just do a daily session as though we hadn't been in retreat for 5 days, and and then you can carry on with your day and hopefully maintain something like this through the rest of your time up until the next time we have retreat. And for those who randomly find this on YouTube at a later time and end up doing the retreat on their own and make it this far, the Facebook group is linked below. If you follow that link, I'm Jared Jones. You can contact me on Facebook. Don't feel weird at all about reaching out to me. You can reach out to me personally. I'm happy to give you any advice humbly that I'm capable of giving you, and to help you find a good lineage of teaching and practice, because I see myself as a supplement to an actual lineage. I'm not an actual lineage myself. The things that I teach as a supplement to help people get the absolute most out of whatever lineages they're practicing. This is how I see what I do. In addition to that, I also do teach some other courses, and after this, because now finally some people that have been with me a while, I feel like we all hopefully have the tools mentally after this retreat, having done some intensive work, to do really strong, really good rumination meditation. So since we now have the tools to do rumination in a really powerful way, I'll probably go back and pick up the emptiness course that we were doing. And I'm certainly going to go back now and pick up the Lamrim course, so that we'll pick up from where we were in the Lamrim, and we'll carry on forward until we get to the end. All right? Okay, so let's do a little session. So I got my coffee in. It's very important. My wife may come in and let the dog out, since I'm no longer in retreat. No boundaries. So if she does, don't let it disturb your meditation. Okay, set a good posture. I'm going to pretend that we haven't been in retreat and that our bodies are all jacked up. So do some circles, keeping the back straight like this. Just going to circle with the spine straight like this to stretch all those little joints and tendons and things on the hips and the lower back. And also it's important to lean back like this too, not just forward. And then you can take your hands, put them here in the middle of your lap, in whatever posture you're going to meditate in, or you can take them, put them here on your knees, if that's how you like to meditate. And then when you twist your spine, leave your hands in the position that you're going to meditate in, so that once again, you're pulling all of this stuff in your shoulders and your neck and so forth to create space in exactly the way you need for them to be comfortable when you sit. So starting from the bottom of the spine, we're going to twist like this all the way to the top. And then you just relax it and let it fall back out. And then you twist it the other way from the bottom to the top, and then just relax it and let it fall back out. So place your hands wherever you like them for meditation. Start from the bottom of the spine, just twist to the top until you're looking behind. Try to relax your shoulders down, and then just relax your spine, let it come forward naturally. And then once to the other side. And just relax the spine, let it come here. And the last thing I like to do, this is something that came through the martial tradition of my first grade teacher. Just rocking back and forth and letting the the sort of motion of rocking back and forth find its own natural stopping place. So you just rock back and forth, try to relax the hips again, and then tuck the chin to where it's supposed to be, and let the body find whatever the natural up and down point is without choosing it. Okay, now that you've found this position, release into the posture. Don't become a noodle, but relax any tension that doesn't need to be there. So that's the first 2 minutes of our, if we were doing one session a day, that's the first 2 minutes, just to get the body comfortable before we start. Okay, now I like to go straight into intensive breath meditation, because we need to get the mind as intensely focused and concentrated as we can in the shortest period of time, since we're lay people, and especially if your one daily session was at night, maybe you're contending with the entire day's nonsense and negative emotions. And so you need something powerful to rip your mind away from the entire day's activities. So once again, pretending we haven't been in retreat for 5 days, let's start with about 5 minutes of intensive breath meditation. So place your mind on whichever nostril has the most sensation. So breathe in one time. For me, it's on this side today. So find the little patch of skin inside the nostril. Count from 1 to 7, 7 to 0. When you get to 0, just enter a state of observing mental consciousness for a moment and then return to the breath. And do that 3 times. Here we go. No delay, no bullshit, no whatever. Bring the mind straight with great intensity to the nostril. And go. Okay. Now from here, just let the mind settle for a moment. You can keep the eyes closed or open them, it's up to you. Now bring the mind into body scanning to enhance the stability of the mind. The left toes, left ball of foot, left arch and top of foot, heel, ankle, lower part of the calf, upper, knee, thigh, upper thigh, hip, right toes, right ball of foot, right arch and top of foot, right heel, right ankle, bottom part of the calf, upper, knee, lower part of the thigh, upper, and into the hip, the joint. Move now to the front part of the pelvis. And the back and sides of the pelvis, including the buttocks. Find the portion of the spine that is between the hip bones. Find the tailbone. The anus, perineum. And take a little time to go through the parts of the sexual organs. Bottom part of the waist. The front part of the waist. The back part of the waist, including the sides. Front part of the diaphragm channel. Back part of the diaphragm channel. Front part of the chest. Back part of the chest. Left shoulder. Bicep. Elbow. Forearm. Wrist. Palm and back of hand. Fingers. Right shoulder. Bicep. Elbow. Forearm. Wrist. Palm and back of hand. Fingers. bottom third of your neck, middle third, upper third, the joint between the neck and the skull, back of the scalp, left side, right side, left ear, right ear, forehead, left eyebrow, left eye, right eye, right eyebrow, right cheek, left cheek, nose, not your top lip, but your upper lip area, your chin, now your top lip, lower lip, the skin on the inside of your cheeks and lips, now scan your teeth, roof of your mouth, underneath your tongue, your tongue, and your throat. Move the attention to the top of the head now, the top of the scalp. Find the most sensitive point. Hold that point, extend the awareness down to the fingertips on both sides. Hold those 3 points, extend the awareness from the crown down to the toe tips and heels on both sides. And now front, back, left, right, up, down. Hold the 6 points for a moment. Release the 6 points and hold full body awareness. Open the eyes, front, back, left, right, up, down. The ears, front, back, left, right, up, down. Holding those 3, add the olfactory or smell consciousness. Everything that's close. Front, back, left, right, up, down. Holding those, bring the mind to the center of taste consciousness, and then add on taste, front, back, left, right, up, down. Abide with awareness of the five senses. Now, add on awareness of the mental sense gate. Choiceless, intentionless, doing nothing awareness, like a mirror. Aware of mental content. Release the awareness of the five senses and focus solely on the mental sense gate. So, in terms of daily practice, we're now at about 25 minutes. Mind is pretty calm. We practiced all the skills that we might use for work, etc. We practiced intensive breath meditation, which is zooming the mind in on one thing. We practiced body scanning, which is zooming the mind in on a progressive series of steps and stages. So that's your work life, a lot of your work life. The other aspect of your work life is that you have to think through things. So we haven't done that yet this morning. So that's rumination. So much of your work life can be encapsulated in zooming into one thing, zooming into a progressive series of things, or rumination. So the last skill we need to practice, therefore, before going out in the world, is rumination. And the rest of the time can be covered by opening the body gate, opening the visual gate, opening the smell gate, taste, etc. So most of our life, therefore, can be covered with what we've done already, besides needing to think things through. So just briefly, you could choose, as I said, whatever your big problem is. If it's pride, think about the antidotes to pride. You could look those up. You can find them on Buddhist sources. You can find resources for that. If anger is your big problem, same thing. Find the Buddhist contemplations on reducing anger, either by cultivating loving kindness or by cultivating patience. Yeah. But since it's fresh in my mind, we'll just do a quick rumination on the preciousness of a human rebirth. So just in regards to the freedoms, whether or not you accept rebirth as a real thing, consider that as a human being, if there are hellish kinds of suffering, and if there are beings who are experiencing unbelievable pain of heat, how incredible that you are free of that condition, that you're not so overwhelmed by pain of heat that you have the freedom to train your mind like we're doing right now. Unbelievable. Not only that, some beings are so overwhelmed by cold that all they can do is think about, how do I get out of this cold? But you are free from that condition. What a blessing. And that gives you the time, the freedom to practice training your mind. How incredible. Some beings in the hungry ghost realm spend 50 or 100 years looking for a single drop of something to drink. Their whole existence is just, where am I going to find something to drink? I need a drink. But in our conditions, we're free from that. When we need something to drink, most of the time it comes very quickly. And so therefore we can focus on our practice. How incredible. In the hungry ghost realm, and even here on earth, some people's whole existence is, where am I going to find my next meal? How am I going to eat? But we have the freedom from that condition. And therefore, we have time to practice training our mind. How incredible. In the animal realm, because they don't have the right kinds of concepts, animals can't learn any kind of sophisticated mind training or sophisticated ethical training or sophisticated mental practice. But you're free from that condition. You don't have a mind that's overwhelmed by that kind of lack of intelligence. And therefore, you have the opportunity to practice the Dharma. How incredible. Some beings are so overwhelmed by the bliss of concentration that all they do is sit around blissed out in concentration. And instead of using concentration as a tool to finish the process of spiritual development, they just sit around in a state of concentration, never actually solving all these problems that are on the surface of their mind through training and wisdom and so forth. But you've encountered the information that will stop you from doing that. How incredible that you're free from that condition of just blissing out in concentration and never actually finishing the process of development. In terms of human beings, all sorts of human beings never even hear the word Dharma. Of the billions of human beings there are, very, 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 very few hear the word Dharma. In the history of the world, very few beings are born at a time when the Buddha exists or existed and left teachings. Very few are in supportive conditions where massive organizations that require huge resources to maintain their existence from day to day, and huge amounts of effort and so forth by all of their members to maintain the Dharma. All of that. Some people never encounter this, but you're free from that condition. You're free from being completely ignorant, having never heard the Dharma, never heard the word Dharma. You're free from the condition of never encountering a Buddha. You're free from the condition of not having the support network that maintained all of this and prepares it and gives it to you. You're free from all of that. And therefore, you have the ability to practice the Dharma. How incredible. Some people in the human existence, they also have all of those conditions. They've heard the word Dharma, the Buddha came, they have all these supportive conditions, but they have these wrong philosophical or religious or even scientific views in their mind that stop them, that block them from, even in a relatively secular way, as we've done for 5 days, investigating their mind and seeing what the fundamental nature of their own being is like. You're not like that. You don't have those problems. How incredible that you're free from that condition, because this is quite rare. How incredible is this? How precious. What a blessing. And finally, some people have all of this. They've met the Dharma. They don't have wrong views, have supportive conditions. But their life is so chaotic, so filled with stuff they have to do, the responsibilities, the kids, the work, the this, the that, that they have no time whatsoever. Even though they have the desire, the willingness, the resources, they're here at the right time. They're not an animal. They're not a hell being. They're not a hungry ghost. They're not just blissed out in concentration all the time and completely uninterested in finishing the process of training. Even though they have all these conditions, still they don't have time because their life has completely weighed down on them with responsibilities and other things they have to do. And so they can't do any practice. But you're free from that condition. You have time. What a blessing. How precious. How incredible. Okay. So that's your rumination for the day. And all told, I think that was 34 minutes of practice. So we touched some type of really tight concentration, focused like a laser. We touched going through non-conceptual analysis of something with mind focused like a laser on each point. We touched each of the consciousnesses experiencing their own nature, and we touched controlling the surface of the activity of our mind through thinking through and contemplating an issue. So we touched basically every element, I think, of our being that we can access pretty easily, right? See? You're welcome. Someone said thank you in the chat. You're very welcome. So you can see in 35 minutes, you can touch all of the major aspects of your being that are relatively easy to get your hands on. The only thing we didn't work with is the energy body. But if you had some Tai Chi, Qigong stuff, you could leave this session and do your exercise or whatever that's Tai Chi, Qigong, working with the energy body, whatever, you know. You could do those practices as your exercise for the day and still maintain a great deal of the sort of stuff that we've built up for the session. Yeah. And then from here, you leave the cushion, you go into your day, and when you need to open the visual gate, you open it and you do a micro session. When you need to open the consciousness gate, maybe you have a few minutes and, you know, whatever, after lunch at work, and you're just kind of hanging, and you open the mental gate, and whatever, you do 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And so you use these little micro sessions to continue raising the boat, you know. And that's it. Maybe you do another session at night, maybe you don't. Depends on your own mind and time. Yeah. Okay. So that is the advice for after retreat, so that you don't feel abandoned. You know, I don't want anyone to feel like I just sort of threw you to the wolves. And like I said, Facebook group link in the thing below. You can reach out to me on Facebook, and I'm happy to give you more advice. And then I'm going to start the Lamrim group back up, so we'll carry on contemplating our way through and doing rumination through the Lamrim until we get to the end. And yeah, I may also pick the emptiness and selflessness group back up as well, depending on the level of interest and time and everything else, because we only have so much time to do various practices. Okay, have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in. And Nat, in particular, get some sleep. You've been going on a marathon for days and days. Okay, yeah, and I'll send you the link for the Lamrim one. Someone said in the chat. Okay, have a good day. Oh, sorry, last thing. So if you're Buddhist, then you would do, you know, I did all these prayers and things before we got on the session. So you would do your prayers to set your intent and motivation for your practices. And then after your practices, you would do dedication prayers to sort of lock in the merit and good karma and make sure that it doesn't get damaged later by your negative actions, like we did last night for the whole retreat. But you do that in sort of miniature before and after your each session, you know. So motivation prayers, dedication prayers, sort of sandwich your practice as a general rule. But yeah, so sorry, that's the only thing I didn't mention. Okay, all right, have a good day.